This is Petite Picot cast on after a few rounds of 1x1 ribbing, and it is a beautiful cast on for something like cuff down socks. And I'm going to show you how I do this. And first, you're going to take the needles and position them like this, with the left needle at the top and right needle below it. And then take the yarn, okay, having the end of the yarn pointing to the left, okay, and then grab the yarn below the needles, okay, so left needle at top, right needle below it, and then the yarn below both needles, and start wrapping around the needles. Bring the yarn to the top of the left needle and then go over it, bring it to the bottom, wrap it around like that, and then bring the yarn below both needles to the left and wrap it around the right needle, okay? And knit that stitch by bringing the stitch to the front, and we're going to bring the stitch and the yarn under and around the yarn, okay? And so slip that stitch onto the left needle. Now we have 2 stitches. Don't pull the yarn too tight. We're going to knit those 2 stitches together. Okay. And slip the 2 stitches off your left needle and slip the 1 stitch from your right needle back on to the left needle. Now we're going to pair it with the knit stitch. It's like a knitted cast on, just knitting to that stitch, and don't slip the stitch off left needle, just simply bring the stitch from right needle onto your left needle. Now we have 2 stitches cast on, so this bump here has 2 stitches, so for every little bump you're going to have a pair, you're going to have 2 stitches, okay? And let's do this again. Position your needles, left needle at top, right needle below it, yarn below both needles, and then wrap around the left needle and bring the yarn below both needles, and then wrap it around the right needle and bring the stitch to the front and go under and around the yarn and slip the stitch onto your left needle, knit 2 together, slip stitches off your left needle, slip stitch back onto right needle, pair it with the knit stitch, and slip that stitch onto your left needle. Okay, that's 2 more cast on. Okay, and this will be the wrong side of the knit, so when you're ready to join in round, you're going to start out your round by starting with the first cast on stitch, right? So that will be the first stitch of round. The first stitch of cast on is also the first stitch of round. Now if you happen to be working in flat, when you're ready to work, then you're going to be working the first row as a wrong side row. Now let's do this again. Position your needles, left needle at top, right needle below it, and yarn below both. Wrap it around the left needle first, okay, and then wrap it around the right needle. Knit that stitch by bringing the stitch to the front, and then go under and around the yarn and slip the stitch onto your left needle, knit 2 together, slip the 2 stitches off your left needle, slip the stitch from right needle back onto left needle, pair it with a knit stitch, and slip that stitch onto the left needle. Okay, one more time. position needles, wrap around first needle, wrap around second needle, knit the stitch, bring the needle and stitch under and around the yarn, slip it onto left needle, knit two together, slip stitches off left needle, slip stitch back onto right needle, pair it with a knit stitch, and slip that stitch onto left needle. One more time, position needle, wrap, wrap, knit under around, slip on, knit two together, slip off, slip on, pair it with a knit stitch, slip on. Okay, so now I have 10 stitches cast on for the Petite Picot cast on. So now I have all the stitches cast on, and this is the first cast on stitch, and this is the last cast on stitch, and I want to join the stitches in round. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to first slide. This is easier for me to do it this way. I'm doing a magic loop method. I am gonna slide the stitches to the other end. Okay, this is the way I like to do it, to the end that is first cast on stitch will be on the needle, and kind of turn it around so that it looks like I'm ready to work. That's the first cast on stitch, right? So that's the yarn end right there, first cast on stitch, ready to work. And I am gonna kind of divide the stitches in half, and then pull the cord out. Okay, so, and then keep pulling the cord out so that the other half of the stitches are on the other needle. Okay, all right. So what I'm having here is first cast on stitch is on this needle that's right in front of me, and then the very last cast on stitch is on the needle behind. That makes it easier to work with. Now pull that needle and then knit the first stitch. Okay, and usually what I like to do is I like to grab both the end of the yarn and use both strands to knit the first stitch, okay, to secure the end. Now I am doing a 1x1 ribbing, so I'm going to purl the next stitch, and then knit the next stitch. Okay, so that's how you can join around using a magic loop method, or you can do it other methods. Just make sure that the first cast on stitch is the first stitch of round. Okay, and if you happen to be working in flat, then your first row will be a wrong side row. Okay, and that's the way I like it, and I think that looks prettier, and I'm going to show you what it looks like after a few rounds. So this is what it looks like on the right side, and if I started out differently, starting out with the other way, then that's the wrong side. That's what it would look like. But I think this looks a little bit prettier using the first cast on stitch as my first stitch of the round.